Welcome back to What Healing Knows. Before we begin, take one breath with me, a small return to yourself. I'm Dr. Kidi, and this is segment 4, Honoring Truth, episode 6, The Courage to Live What You Know, when truth becomes choice. In this reflection, we explore the space between knowing what the body tells us and living what we know, and the choices that close the gap. Sit back, take another breath, and listen to heal. Once you know the truth, do you have the courage to live it? I cannot count how many times I have told a patient to eat better, exercise, or rest when they're exhausted. You cannot keep going like this. Your body needs better nutrition. You need to move. And I meant every word. Then I would leave the room, I would pick up a cookie from the nurse's station and eat it while answering messages. I would stay later than intended, skip the gym, sit at my desk for hours until my body became stiff. I need to get up, I would tell myself, but I would keep sitting. Or I would reach for something to eat while thinking, I don't need this, and take a bite anyway. What is interesting is that I listened to my body. I understood what it was telling me. I even put it into words. And still, sometimes I choose against what I knew. It is humbling to know something well enough to teach it to someone else while still struggling to live it yourself. Yet, the struggle continues to teach me something important. Knowing the truth is not the same as living in alignment with it. And I know I'm not alone. Maybe you told a friend to leave a job that makes them unhappy while staying in one that makes you unhappy. Maybe you told your children to put down their phones while reaching for yours. And maybe you told your parents to slow down while pushing yourself through exhaustion. Or maybe you told someone they deserve better while accepting less for yourself. Maybe you told yourself, I need to eat better. I need to exercise. I need to get more sleep. I need to slow down. I need to take a breath. You know it. And many times you say it. And still, sometimes you do the opposite. So why? Why do we do this? Why do we listen to what the body tells us and still choose differently? Because knowing is not the same as living. The body is constantly working to sustain the life it carries. It receives information, responds to change, regulates its systems, protects, repairs, and communicates what it needs constantly. I call this capacity the knowing original intelligence. We experience some of its signals as hunger, fatigue, tension, pain, changes in breathing, restlessness, or the need to move. And sometimes we recognize the signal immediately. We even put it into words. I need to rest. I need to get up. I don't want to do this. I've had enough. At that point, we know. But knowing does not determine what happens next, because knowing and living ask different things from us. Knowing requires awareness, but living requires awareness and action. So awareness asks, what's my body telling me? But living asks, what am I going to do with what I know? That second question is harder because eventually truth has to leave awareness and enter your life. It has to reach the calendar, the dinner table, the phone in your hand, the relationships you continue, the boundaries you keep, the promises you make to yourself, the way you spend an ordinary Tuesday when no one is watching. You can listen and still override. You can understand and still postpone. You can know and still choose what is familiar. Knowing gives us information. Living requires a choice. But why do we choose what is familiar? Remember that the body learns through repetition, so actions require less conscious attention over time. I explored this more deeply in segment 3, episode 1, Returning is a Form of Love, how the body learns through repetition. The question is, are we repeating the actions that support our well being? Because repetition works both ways. When we repeat behaviors we want to change, those behaviors become more familiar too. And simply knowing we want to do something differently does not automatically interrupt the pattern. When we are tired, stressed, distracted, or overwhelmed, it can be easier to return to what we know. That is why you can feel the stiffness in your body and think, I need to get up, yet remain in the chair. The signal arrived, you noticed it, you knew what you needed, but you still chose what was familiar. We do this more often than we realize, and each time a little more distance can grow between what we know and how we live. And there is a cost associated with that, because living in disagreement with yourself can be exhausting. You know you need rest, but you keep going. You know a friendship leaves you depleted, but you continue showing up the same way. You know you need help, but you keep telling yourself you should be able to handle everything alone. You know you want to say no, but hear yourself saying yes again. Repeatedly living against what you know can become a source of stress. And without enough recovery, chronic stress can affect sleep, digestion, muscle tension, blood pressure, immune function, and cardiovascular health. The body needs periods of activation and recovery. It needs movement and rest, nourishment, sleep, connection, time to return to balance. The challenge is often not knowing what we need. The challenge is moving from knowing to doing. Here is the good news. Between your urge and the action you take, there is a moment when you can pause and choose what happens next. I call that moment the Tinfash Healing Time. Tinfash means breath in Amharic. It is a fragment of a second where you can pause, breathe, listen, and choose intentionally instead of responding on impulse. This is not something I invented. This is the original intelligence that already exists in our body. I simply slowed it down and gave it a name so it could be practiced and become familiar. Tinfash Healing Time does not make the decision for you. What it does is interrupt the familiar response so you can listen to what your body is communicating and decide what you want to do with that information. And this is where knowing begins to become living. And how can you do that? Well, I have created a simple way to practice it. It's called the Tinfash 5C, a knowing to living practice. When you feel the urge to do something you know you shouldn't do, pause. And the first C is to count to 3. Slowly. 1, 2, 3. Those few seconds interrupt the automatic response and create a space for a choice. And then go to the second C. Gently close your eyes. For a moment, turn your attention away from the screens, expectations, and reactions around you and return to yourself. And then calm your breath. Breathe in for 4, pause for 4, breathe out for 6. and give yourself enough time to settle before you act. And now is the fourth C. This is where you create distance. Create some distance from the choice you are being urged to make against your well being. I have created the walk away, float away, throw away trick. Walk away from the habits, float away from the negative thoughts. Literally imagine your thoughts on a cloud drifting off, and then throw away what tempts you in real or imaginary trash can. Then ask, what is my body telling me right now? Listen carefully, and the answer will come as a signal from the body. Now you go to the fifth C, which is to choose differently and act. Because now you're going to choose from knowing, and you're going to let the choice leave the pause and enter your life. If your lips tighten around certain people, that's the signal. Walk away. If a recurrent thought keeps you from sleep, that's the signal. Float it away. Literally, put it on a cloud and float it away. It will come back. That's okay. Keep floating it away. That's the practice. If the cookies are sitting on the corner and you know you shouldn't, that's the signal. Throw them away or don't bring them into the house in the first place. Choosing differently doesn't mean making a dramatic change every time. It means making a conscious choice instead of automatically repeating the familiar one, and then act on it. Stand up, put down the phone, close the computer, make the appointment, have the conversation. And this is how the body's truth begins to become direction, not through one perfect decision, but through small moments when what you know and what you do begin to agree. One signal, one pause, one breath, one choice, and then you begin again. That's what the courage to live what you know looks like. Speaking truth gives it a voice. Living truth gives it direction. The question is no longer, do I know? It is, will I live what I know? And when we live what we know, one final question remains. Can we let our truth be enough without controlling what comes next? And that's where we will go in the final episode of Honoring Truth. Let your truth be enough. If this reflection made you pause, share your thoughts in the comments or connect with me on Instagram at drkidi.healing. Until next time, keep listening, keep returning. Healing knows the way. With love and more love, Dr. Kidi.